Hi, everybody. Welcome to Laughing Place Movie Club. We are talking about Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who from Blue Sky. Was it Blue Sky Studios? Is that their official name?
Yeah, BlueSky Animation Studios, the third animation studios under Disney's current umbrella.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's like, I guess now that Disney Toon Studios is closed, this would be number 3. I always think of them already having 3, but
Nope.
So, I don't know. What do you think?
Horton Hears a Who. I mean, I'm a huge Dr. Seuss fan. And one of the things that this brought up for me was realized as an adult, I don't own any Horton or any Dr. Seuss books anymore. Like all my old copies are at my parents' house and there's none in the house because it kind of made me crave wanting to go back to the original book. But I generally don't love Dr. Seuss books, or in general, I don't like children's books turned into like 90-minute films.
Oh, I was gonna say. I thought you were gonna say.
No. In general, I don't like when a story is like 20 pages, minimal text, and you try and expand it. But I think Horton Hears a Who really works. I also feel like Illumination's Lorax works, and I would say those are the only two like film adaptations of any Dr. Seuss products that I actually enjoy. I do need to see the animated Grinch that came out last year or the year before. I haven't checked that one out yet, but I'm not even a fan of like the Ron Howard live action Grinch. Certainly not the live action Dr. Seuss, or I'm sorry, Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. There's some stuff in the trailer rubbed me the wrong way with the Cat in the Hat that I felt.
Yeah, I took a younger sibling to see Cat in the Hat in theaters, and there are a couple moments that were really, really funny, but they're also really inappropriate for the Cat in the Hat. So the things that I liked best about it just shouldn't have happened to begin with. But Horton Hears a Who stays very true to the story. I do think it's interesting that the book Horton Hears a Who is actually a sequel to Horton Hatches the Egg. And I think it's interesting that Horton Hears a Who is the one they adapted. And they I guess Blue Sky did have the animation rights for Horton Hatches an Egg as well. They just chose not to make it.
Well, Horton Hears a Who is the better story. But I mean, before you get too far, I'm going to give you an out. When you say adaptation of Dr. Seuss books, you're talking about feature length, right?
I'm not talking about the Chuck Jones classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. That is perfect. In fact, I had a lot of the animated TV specials that were made based on Dr. Seuss books as a kid. And I remember when Daisy Head Maisie was found, and then they made that into a TV special. That 30-minute TV special length is just perfect for children's book adaptation. When you really try and expand it beyond that, it gets a little bit crazy. But I feel like what they did with Horton Hears a Who, for the most part, really works in terms of the way that they expanded the story. They did have Theodore Seuss Geisel's wife involved. In fact, that was actually part of the stipulation. She was not planning on letting any other feature films be made based on Seuss's work after The Cat in the Hat. And Blue Sky had to really bend over backwards to prove to her that they could do it and that they would do it respectfully. And one of the stipulations was that she be on there as a producer credit, and she kind of got to have a final say on everything they were doing. So like all of the story additions here had her blessing.
I will say that I got nervous when I saw Jim Carrey was cast as Horton, because I thought like it's a little too Mike Myers Cat in the Hat, and he was fine as the Grinch, but I didn't love that either, and not as much as I love sort of the more straightforward animated adaptations. But here he's so not Jim Carrey. He does a few of his sort of exaggeration lines and stuff, but it's not like somebody stop me. Like it wasn't nothing like that.
There's moments where it's Jim Carrey. I will say, casting wise, for the Ron Howard How the Grinch Stole Christmas movie, there was probably no other actor who could play the Grinch in the way that would harken back to the animated TV special.
Oh, and to be fair to Ron Howard, I think he did as good as he could. I just don't know that The Grinch should have been made as a live action film to begin with,
especially not a 2-hour one.
Yeah, exactly. But I was impressed at just the same thing with when they did the Peanuts, and we talked about that a little bit ago. Able to capture the essence of that style while still making it animated 3D and all that is really impressive. Disney doesn't do like a lot of adaptations, and when they do, they kind of give it its own style. They don't pull from classic I guess, illustrated works like Peanuts or Dr. Seuss. So, I don't know I have much to compare it to, but like if you look at the Chipmunks movies, like they don't look like the Chipmunks ever did. I mean, not that can't tweak it, but that there sort of needs to be a step, and you need to be true to what that franchise is, or why bother, right? And especially with Dr. Seuss, it's not, that is iconic in just its visual styling. But Whoville looked like Whoville, the creatures look like creatures.
They have a lot of fun little Easter eggs kind of sprinkled throughout. I don't know if you noticed, but one of the early establishing shots of Whoville, somebody runs by on a bike with a plate in their hand, and it's green eggs and ham on the plate. There's also the whole fish in the bowl that he keeps trying to like walk around with, and I feel like that's such an homage to Cat in the Hat. But yeah, I mean, Disney Animation Studios, Alice in Wonderland's books had a very definite artistic style that they ignored. A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh books had a famous illustrator that they kind of threw out the door and didn't try to make their version look like that. So it is interesting that here they really had to fit within the rules of what does Dr. Seuss's world look like, having those weird buildings that feel like they're very narrow but very tall, and nothing's squared off. Everything's kind of round and angular and in very unusual ways. Even a lot of the creatures, and they did create some new characters for the film, particularly Katie, who I don't even know what she's supposed to be, because most of the other animals in Horton's Jungle, what they are, or at least that's a bird, that's a mouse derivative or a rodent. With that little Katie character, I have no clue what she's supposed to be, a furry pig maybe, but she is really fun.
Yeah, and I don't know that I have. It makes me wonder what the future of BlueSky Studios is, because as we said, they provide something that I think Disney doesn't through Pixar, Disney. I mean, those are big 5-year, big think pieces, and these are. I don't want to say there's obviously smaller scale. I don't mean that in a bad way, but a Dr. Seuss book is much narrower than what's the afterlife like, or the Frozen Kingdom of Arendelle. So there's a place, and Toon Studios I think was trying to kind of weave that line, and I still believe if Disney Plus existed when Disney Toon Studios was around, Disney Toon Studios would probably still be around. But I wonder if we, at the Investor Day, we didn't get a lot of insight into whether that Ice Age movie or the animated film, are those coming from BlueSky? Who's making those? But I feel like that's a good place for them. Their adaptations are, I think, a lot stronger than their original ideas. There's nothing wrong with Ice Age. I like the first one fine, but I think it played itself out. And Robots, Epic, these are all movies that no one remembers. And so I'm curious to see what the future is, especially since Spice in the Skies kind of got a weird week after Christmas, week after Star Wars released last time, and obviously kind of fell through the cracks because it was a week after Star Wars. But I wonder I really wonder what their future is.
Yeah, and I agree that their strongest film output has been adaptations of known works, which is why I'm hoping they're doing like The Night at the Museum, because I feel like they would really excel at something like that. But going back to Dr. Seuss and the theme of Horton Hears a Who, obviously the book is kind of one note on its theme of a person's a person, no matter how small. But the film, I feel like, kind of takes it bigger than that. What were some of the themes that you felt like really stood out from the film that you weren't expecting just based on the book.
Yeah, it's nice that they didn't try and crowd around the themes. The themes are there in a very Seussian way. I mean, they're not hidden.
I think I lost connection. Are you still there?
Yeah, I think we both did.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry to whoever's watching.
I
don't know what it's like on your end.
But the themes are there, and they're not hidden. It's not like I mean, they're it's pretty clear, but they're very Seussian themes. Whether it's you can be who you want to be. Don't judge people. Those kinds of things. They're very, I guess, clear.
Yeah, and
I like that.
One of the things I thought was kind of interesting that I'm sure nobody, thought of when they did this, but there's that scene where, there's the mayor and then there's his like cabal, and he's kind of like a puppet for them. Like they're the ones really pulling the strings. But there's that moment where he decides to tell everybody, hey, this is what's going on. We're a speck in a bigger world, and we're in danger. And then the other people are supposed to be having some kind of party. He's like, do you want to listen to this guy and go into hiding, or do you want to have this party? And it really reminds me of the present coronavirus times, with like health experts saying, don't go home for Christmas. Don't be a community spreader. And then people ignoring that same advice. I thought that was very poignant in these weird times.
So I guess where else you could make this a double feature of Mr. Popper Penguins, which just came to Disney Plus, according to the commercial, right?
Well, according to the commercial, Mr. Popper's Penguins came to Disney Plus on January 1st. But according to reality, Mr. Popper's Penguins didn't actually end up there. Why, I don't know, because that's a fun Jim Carrey film, and Angela Lansbury's in it. And I'm excited for that to come to Disney Plus. But a few more things I want to say about Horton Hears a Who, just in terms of the history of the source material for Dr. Seuss, which I find very interesting. As most of you probably know, Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geisel, was Jewish, and he lived during World War II. And he, came out of that having a lot of very negative feelings towards Japanese people. And that's reflected through some of his comic strips. I think there's even some racial stereotypes in a few of his books, but particularly in the comics that he was doing for newspapers, there were a lot of negative racial stereotypes for people in Japan. And he was inspired by a trip to Japan to write Horton Hears a Who, because when he got there and actually started meeting real Japanese people, not just this vision of this evil that bombed us, and he just realized their whole mentality as a culture was so different and so profound, and community first, individuals second, kind of a mentality. And so that's where he came up with the thought, a person's a person, no matter how small. And actually the book, Horton Hears a Who, is dedicated to a Japanese friend that he made during that trip. So I think it's pretty interesting that for him, somebody who was, really hurt by World War II and what that meant for his Jewish community, and the Japanese allying up with Germany and bombing the U.S. I think it's really interesting story that he ended up going to Japan. It completely changed his opinion on it, and it inspired this work of art, Horton Hears a Who, which then inspired this film.
The film also inspired a Broadway musical called Seussical.
Do you mean the book inspired?
Yeah, sorry. The book inspired a Broadway.
I was going to say the Broadway musical Seussical was well before, like 8 years before BlueSky Animation Studios film.
And do you know who was the original Broadway Horton the Elephant?
I just found this out today when I was doing some research, and I thought of you. So Kevin Chamberlain, who was Chef Emile or Chef Gusteau in the Ratatouille TikTok musical, but most kids know him as Bertram on Jessie. was the original Horton on Broadway. And actually, Benji and I saw him. We've seen him twice now in different Broadway shows. But the first Broadway show we saw him in, he was like the least known of the star billing. And everybody was coming out, making their entrances and getting an applause. And Benji started it for Kevin Chamberlain solely because of Jesse and his role as Bertram.
Jesse, one of the most popular things on Disney Plus. Just saying.
Eternally popular on Disney Plus. And Bunked's not on there for some weird reason.
So Kevin, next time you're wondering what the connection is between Kevin Chamberlain, Bertram from Jesse, and Jim Carrey, now you know.
They both played Horton. And I will say, as weird and as not good of a musical as Seussical is, it does have a few really good songs. The main one is "A Person's a Person, No Matter How Small," and I can't distance that phrase from the melody anymore. So every time he says it in the film, in my head, I'm going, "A person's a person, no matter how small."
A person,
how are you?
No matter at all.
I also think of, I don't remember the rest of the song, but just the character Maisie the bird, which is from Horton Hatches the Egg. But like her entrance is like, "I'm Maisie the bird and I live in that tree." And like, that's all I can think of when I hear that.
The much maligned Seussical, the musical.
Yes.
But I think a hidden gem.
Well, and my first time going to New York was in 2000. It was spring break of 2000. And for whatever reason, even though we were there for like 4 or 5 days, my dad decided we could only see one Broadway show. And so we had a hard time choosing. My younger sibling really wanted Seussical for obvious reasons, that it was like the kid-friendly show. But also Rosie O'Donnell was the top billing as the Cat in the Hat, which sounds terrible. But we ended up seeing Phantom instead, which is still running. Go figure.
I saw the national tour with Kathy Rigby, and she flew around a lot.
Of Seussical?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, they redid it for her. They cut some songs and all that stuff, but she was always on a wire.
Who knew?
So, anything else about Horton Hears a Who?
Well, just I think it's cool, the voice cast, especially, they got Steve Carell kind of like right at the start of his fame. He had just hit it big around this time with 40-Year-Old Virgin and then The Office. So it was like he couldn't have been more hot, but he's still a huge star. I mean, Jim Carrey does a great job, but there's a lot of names. Carol Burnett is actually like the big villain as the redeem herself kangaroo. Who kind of starts everyone getting this frenzy over the speck on the clover.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this a different Whoville?
So that's a fun question. Dr. Seuss never said, as far as I'm aware, but he created Whoville. Whoville made its introduction in Horton Hears a Who, and then the Grinch is set in Whoville. So is it the same Whoville, and would the Grinch have had a town to terrorize if Horton hadn't found them a safe place to live? Who's to say? But probably. And then
Dr. Seuss Cinematic Universe.
Right. Well, I was going to say, and then now there's like parallel universes and other planets within the Seuss world. And where are the Sneetches?
The ones with the stars or the ones without?
Well, either or.
I only really care about the ones with the stars.
Do you butter the top side or the bottom side of your bread?
Top side. The bottom side would just get the plate all buttered. That's silly.
As a kid, did you ever hop on your pop?
Yeah. Did you?
I don't know if I hopped on him. I hopped with him. Hopping on him sounds like I would have heard him.
I think I'd balance with my little bottom on him.
Did you have a favorite Dr. Seuss book as a kid?
So there's actually two.
Mm-hmm.
One was not like a real book. It was like about me book where like you would fill in, but it was written by Dr. Seuss. Okay. I forget what that was called. And then as a kid, I loved Green Eggs and Ham. Yeah,
Green Eggs and Ham was my number one as a little kid. And I had heard it so many times that I had memorized it, and I would trick people into thinking I could read because I just knew what words went with which page, and just knew it by heart. But my other favorite has always been the Lorax. I'm a huge environmentalist. I have environmentality, and I think that was like my dawning of that, like reading the Lorax and realizing like, oh, we need trees and things like that. So I love that one. And actually, I would say the Lorax is my favorite Dr. Seuss film adaptation. Have you ever seen The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T?
I have.
It's creepy.
It's something.
If you guys don't know, that's the film. It's a live action film that Dr. Seuss wrote and art directed. And so it's very much in Dr. Seuss style. And it stars Hans Conried, the voice of Captain Hook, and the live action magic mirror for Walt Disney's television specials.
And the Grinch in Halloween is Grinch Night.
Oh, Hans Conried was the voice of the Grinch in that?
Yeah, because Bela Lugosi had died. Or whoever. Yeah, so they used Hans Conried in the sequel.
Okay. Well, there was another one. I don't remember it as a book, but I remember it as an animated special, and I don't know if it existed only as that, where it was the animated Grinch with the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, so that was later on.
Okay.
They would show that on Disney Channel a bunch.
I was gonna say I remember seeing it, and I want to feel like I want to say one of the Dr. Seuss VHSs I had that was like the secondary feature, like to give you an hour of content. They would like sell you on one story, but then include another that wasn't as well known. So like the Cat in the Hat came with its sequel, Cat in the Hat Comes Back, that kind of thing.
Like they do with the Peanuts ones, right?
Right. Yeah, where they give you the Halloween one and the Christmas one, but then also the Thanksgiving one, which isn't as good. Or you get the springtime one, but then they give you the Arbor Day one. Because that's a holiday we want to get the Peanuts involved in every Arbor Day.
Well, you are probably thinking about the Grinch's The Cat in the Hat.
That sounds like a thing.
Yeah, so that was 1982, and what's funny is it's it starts with the Grinch being happy, like in a good mood, but then he something happens where he gets like the mirror tells him to become evil again. So like it's not like, so it doesn't just like completely throw away How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but basically.
Interesting. But yeah, and then not that it lends itself to becoming a film or an animated thing. I don't think they ever adapted this one, but Oh, the Places You'll Go is a big one. I think it's so interesting that one is often given to teenagers as they graduate college or high school and college as a gift.
No, it's interesting because that's the last book he wrote that was published during his lifetime. Like I remember when it came out and it was a big deal. And I remember buying it and being like, like I was probably 8 or 8, and it didn't speak to me then because I went to college. And, but because they, I guess it just, but it was such an event that he was releasing a new book.
Yeah, the new book that I remember from my life.
Yeah. And then, they discovered books like Daisy and stuff. But that's
Daisy and Daisy was the big one that I remember, which was discovered and I think illustrated by somebody else. Like it didn't use his original illustrations. Or he hadn't completed it or whatever.
Yeah. So, any questions?
I think I said everything I have to say about Horton Hears A Who.
Yes, you got it. The Grinch is a Cat in the Hat.
Oh, cool. Where were you? We needed you a moment ago. We're having some technical issues on our end. Oh yeah, the music in Horton Hears A Who is by Jim Shore, who also did Bolt. So another fun Disney connection.
But doesn't need one because it's Disney as it is.
Yeah, it's Disney because they bought it. And not at Walmart, but from Fox.
So next week we get another BlueSky film, if I'm not mistaken. Ferdinand. Not the Disney one. Although is that on Disney Plus? Maybe I should watch that too. Make it like a Ferdinand feature.
Yeah. Ferdinand the Silly Symphony is also on Disney Plus. So you could make it a double feature and join us. I'm sure we can't talk about one without talking about the other. So that'll be fun. That'll be next Monday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time.
You got it. And then just if you want to get ahead of us, the week after that's Hulu's The Ultimate Playlist of Noise, followed by another Hulu original, In and of Itself, which Alex will be a part of because he has a special story to tell.
Yeah. I was a part of it.
And then we'll start February off with Mary Poppins Returns. So that's the movie club. Check them out, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.